Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the 3rd and 20 Dynasty Podcast. I'm JT, joined by Jake, Frank, and Lounis. We are on Season 2, Episode 8. Week 3 is in the books. That was a lot of numbers right off the bat for you all, but Week 3 in the books is what's important. We are on to Week 4. Obviously, a big game. Brady's coming home to the Patriots, but let's get on to some Dynasty talk. First, we're going to cover the injury news. Not too much injury news, some random stuff. Then we're going to look at what's trending around, our dynasty and Twitter and whatnot. Devy prospects on the move, waiver wire, and finally panic meter and beta grade. Kicking off, though, we're going to go with injuries. I guess the biggest one in terms of longevity is KJ Hamler tears his ACL. He is now out for the season for the Broncos. The Broncos kind of hinted that they'd be looking somewhere else to go and try and fill the void at wide receiver. I personally don't think they really need to. I think they already have a solid team. The one thing I'll say, and I'm ready to get roasted already, is they had a good wide receiver on their team that they cut in Seth.
Please,
oh my God!
Please give it up.
Look, I told you guys I was about to get roasted there. I got roasted. I just had to say it on the pod.
Does look for another wide receiver mean trade, or is it just going to be like, okay, we're going to pick up a guy off the practice squad or free agency?
The way the beat reporters, which now that I'm saying it sounds stupid, but the way the beat reporters kind of made it look is that they'd be looking, externally, whether that be free agency or another team. But it's beat reporters, and I think that's kind of what's going to drive more clicks than just saying, oh, they're going to promote someone from the practice squad. So now that you say that,
all the Denzel Mims fans are crawling out of their holes like, please trade for him. Me precious.
I think Denzel Mims needs to be freed. I'm not like a big Denzel Mims guy, especially when he was going for so high. I know we're already off topic, but I do think that he could find a good spot on another team.
I actually agree.
I don't think that team's Denver, though.
Yeah, Denver's not.
Hamler, though, I think this actually does really stink for him. Hamler was a guy that, with Judy hurt, he had already seen a little bit of an uptick, it seemed like, in volume this season. And with Judy hurt, you really felt like it was him or Tim Patrick or possibly both that could become like relevant fantasy players. Now that he's hurt and Judy's hurt, I mean, Tim Patrick, who's a guy that I actually liked buying for like a contender flex spot for really cheap already. I think he's still cheap. He's still in that 3rd round range. And if he is, and you're a contender, it's the same two guys, him and Cole Beasley, that I'm still trying to acquire if I need a flex player.
Absolutely. The rise of Tim Patrick continues.
He never dies.
He never dies.
What is dead may never die.
Yeah, and then I sent a tweet out this weekend. We all said it during the offseason, but Sutton and Odell were being too undervalued in startup drafts and just in general this offseason because of their injuries. They both look good coming back.
All right, then moving on, we got Tua on IR, hurt ribs. Jacoby Brissett filling his spot. I don't know, like, there are some people that are saying that like this isn't like that big of a decline for the Miami Dolphins offense. I disagree. I don't know. I thought Tua was starting to look better than people were giving him credit for. It's not like he played easy teams to start the year and whatnot. I just think now we just gotta wait further for Tua, and his career currently is just looking at he's got injured before he got drafted. He struggled when he was playing. Now he got injured again. I got to imagine his dynasty stock is taking a big downfall. But for me, I kind of want to buy the dip. It's just doesn't get to the point where I'm actually ready to willingly go out and actively buy Tua. Are any of you going in actively buying Tua at this point?
No.
No.
No. All right.
I don't think his price is dipped, though. I think that's the problem, is that the guys that
still
have Tua aren't going to sell him for anything less unless maybe in a scenario where you have a really, really contending contender that's like, oh, I desperately need a quarterback that can play. But even then, I think they're going to try and stonk Tua, and players are picks going upwards instead of trying to sell Tua downwards into picks or a worse quarterback or something.
Tua's going to be a tough guy to sell to other people, though, if you're trying to get people above Tua. But personally,
Go ahead. I don't think he'll be that tough to sell. I mean, I think it would take the right person, yes, but I do think there's a good amount of people that still believe in Tua. I mean, he's been put in a really tough situation to start his career, and it's kind of unfortunate between, coming into the league in a COVID year, coming off a major hip surgery, in his rookie season, that whole Ryan Fitzpatrick's out last year, that whole scenario. And now he finally started to look good this offseason. He looked pretty decent in week 1 against the Patriots. And then week 2, he just gets absolutely obliterated because his offensive line can't block Lounis at defensive end. And yeah, I know, unreal defensive end in his prime over there. But yeah, it's a really unfortunate situation, but I think you could find a guy that still believes in Tua just because the situation has been so unfortunate for him that someone will think he'll turn it around.
I did some searching while you were talking there, and this is where keep trade cut kind of falls a little short for me, is when it turns into essentially a redraft trade calculator, because Tua is currently being ranked as quarterback 21 at the value of pick 112, Chris Carson, Josh Jacobs, Travis Etienne. That's low for me.
No, this is just going all over the place with the valuations of players, man. You got guys that I have way up and way low that you just mentioned. Like, what the hell is going on?
It's 3 running backs that are kind of in they're in that like 4th tier, I'd probably say, of just my imaginary tiers.
Maybe.
I think that's a low spot for it. Like, if you could trade Chris Carson for Tua, like,
that's too low. But realistically, we know you're not buying him at that price anyway.
The problem with these quarterbacks, a lot of the young quarterbacks, is that if they're not showing like, oh, they're just absolute studs, it's very finicky who wants to buy or sell them. Kind of what Jake mentioned, it really is person dependent. You'll have guys that really like Tua and will say, hey, oh, dude, Tua at QB 20, that's a smash buy. And then you have other people who are like, oh, well, he's aptly ranked at QB 20 and around that very late first. So
the thing,
it definitely is buyer dependent.
The final take I'll have on Tua, it's not a talent issue for me because people got to realize Tua, I don't even think he's had 16 starts yet.
He has not.
We see these rookies struggle.
Talent issue. If it's not a talent issue, why aren't you buying him?
Because it's an injury issue. It's a concern. I can understand people being concerned about. It pretty much has faith in how much you believe he'll stay healthy throughout multiple years. Because the past 3 years, he's had injuries in all 3 of them. So it kind of enters that field where it's more of an injury concern than a talent thing.
These aren't really the same
injury
injuries.
concern, like long term. I'm confused. What
I mean, the ribs are not a long term injury. If anything,
no, I just mean long term
injury.
I meant like, more. It's kind of like.
What are you saying? He's frail.
That's what I'm saying. It's kind of like for example, it's Carson Wentz dilemma, where Carson didn't have the same injury multiple times, but he just kept injuring and getting different kinds of injuries every single season. That's what this scares me and reminds me of.
I'd be buying Tua's from Lounis's if I could, but
obviously I don't think there's a lot of 112 price.
I
don't agree with that 112 price. That's ridiculous.
All right. Moving on. Someone I really like. I know Jake really likes him too because I keep trying to buy him from Jake in our home league and he won't give him to me. T. Higgins hurt his shoulder kind of out of nowhere. Like he hurt at the end of the game against why am I blanking on the team? Not the Steelers. It was the game before the Steelers. Whoever he hurt against, whatever. T. Higgins hurts his shoulder, end of the game. It was like fine. No one really said anything about it. Then all of a sudden, Bears, thank you. Then all of a sudden, it starts coming out, oh, he's missing practice. Oh, he's doubtful. Oh, he misses a week. Now we're recording this on Tuesday. He didn't practice today. They're on a short week. So, I mean, I'm not going to say it's 100% he won't play, but more likely than not, it seems like T. Higgins is not playing this week either. Concerns for T. Higgins?
No. It sucks that he's missing time, but am I concerned? No. He was looking good before he got hurt, and I think he'll probably be back after this next game.
I'll tell you what, I thought that the Bengals offense looked like it lost a step to a certain extent without T. Higgins. The numbers will say it was like a good day for the Bengals, but they really couldn't move the ball unless the Steelers really gave it to them. And we're like, listen, at some point you have to move the ball because we just keep fucking giving you opportunities.
Joe Burrow only attempted 18 passes.
Which still, I don't understand. Why? Okay, you won the game. Congratulations. I could have been play calling you for you and we would have won the freaking game. Why do they not throw the ball more?
I don't get it.
I don't know either, actually.
Unless there's like
some couldn't pass rush him. It's not like, oh, well, he's going to get hurt. We got to worry. Dude, he was getting 10 seconds back there.
It's not like there's...
Go ahead.
I mean,
Jamar Chase is one-on-one with a guy who wasn't fucking drafted the entire game.
That they on this on the Bengals, I don't know what their plan is. If they're like, oh, we're gonna unleash this secret weapon later in the season where we have all three of our guys going out for passes, but it makes no sense. Joe Burrow last year, this time was attempting 45 passes plus a game. Now maybe it's like, oh, they're scared now and they'll want him to get hurt, kind of what you were saying earlier, Frank. But like, you drafted Joe Burrow number 1 overall for a reason. There's a reason you drafted Jamar Chase 5 overall. Like, you have the weapons to go out and use those guys. You should be passing it 35 plus times at a minimum, and they're just not right now. But they have a winning record, don't they? So
Joe Mixon is also second in the league in rushing, averaging like over 4.5 yards a carry. Like, you might want to use that guy.
Look at that schedule.
Yeah.
I mean, they played your Steelers, but yeah,
our Steelers were playing third stringers the entire game.
The issue with Mixon is more like the team doesn't look that good when they're like relying on Mixon the whole time. Like the Vikings almost came back against them. Like the Steelers were able to hold in tight. Like I just don't get why you want to use Mixon the whole time. I know we're also getting off topic.
They're freaking whatever their coach's name is comes from like that classic wide zone tree where you have the freaking Shanahans and the LaFleurs that do like to run the ball and I mean value it to set up play action and get those linebackers in a bind. But I agree with you, JT. You don't actually have to run the ball a bajillion times. You just need the threat of running the ball. That doesn't mean you have to go, oh well. The threat of running the ball means Mixon's getting 20 carries a game. Like, no, dude, just force him to respect it. And once they don't, then you run. Different topic.
All right. So moving on, I'm just going to combine these two together because to me, they're not really that big of a deal. But we got Dalvin hurt his ankle and CMC hurt his quad, I want to say. Maybe hamstring. I forget. Hamstring. Both of them seem like super short injuries. Neither of them got put on IR. Dalvin, it might linger this week, but who knows? CMC, I don't expect to be in this week, so it's kind of annoying for owners.
The guess that Rappaport gave for McCaffrey was week 6. Him missing 2 games. Him missing 2 games, which is why they didn't put him on the 3-week IR. Yeah,
fair enough. It's annoying, but you'd rather that than season-ending injuries. I don't know. It wouldn't.
Honestly, Yep. More of the question isn't even like, oh, well, because no one's going to sell short on any of these dudes. Nothing happened. You're just waiting. Is there any consideration to a back that you would look to pick up to get cheap points to replace him with?
Well, what do you mean? Like outside of the Panthers and the Vikings?
If you're in a competitive league, right? Maybe it's the first year out of your startup and you have a lot of, the lines are a little bit more blurred and who's the contenders and who's not. I mean, are you going out and trying to give up, a pick upgrade, like a second to third for a Jamaal Williams if that gets accepted or something along the lines of that?
Well, as you said that there were only like 2 real players I had in mind. And it was Jamaal Williams and James Conner would be the only 2 guys that I'd be willing to pay slightly for to just shore up my running back group if I had a contender kind of team and was looking to, just maintain that front. Those are the only 2 guys, Jamaal Williams, James Conner.
Okay, and what about, unless you guys have any other buy low running backs that you'd be looking to pick up and replace them, like what about the handcuffs? What's going to happen with them? Are you guys liking the handcuff scenario?
I've always said I don't like Hubbard, but I've always said that I like Madison. I've been ridiculed and told he's just a jag, but the past 2 times he's filled in for Dalvin Cook, he's done pretty well in both starts. Like if Jake's in the scenario where if you own Madison, did he not produce for you this week?
This week, the last time I played him when Dalvin was out, he got like 6 points and did nothing.
Dude,
was that the Seattle game?
Some of that Seattle
game?
No,
Seattle is actually last year when he played Seattle, he had 20+ points, and this week when he played Seattle, he had 20 points. So I just think that's more of a function of Seattle's defense being the worst in the league again than anything, because whenever he plays a competent defense, the Vikings miss Dalvin Cook, and it's pretty evident.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, there are some Twitter threads that I saw relaying the issues of the Vikings. And I mean, I'll save you the trouble of going and finding the all-22. It's just horrendous pass defense from the Seahawks again.
It's horrible. It's so bad.
I think that their D-backs.
You said their pass defense? Their pass defense is bad?
Their defense is, like, their front seven is still, I think, decent. I mean, with Bobby Wagner, like, the guy is such an animal. He's going to make plays, but my God, it's the same issues as last year where their depth pieces just suck. Like, really badly suck.
Good thing they gave up a bunch of firsts for a safety, right? Shore up that secondary.
I was never a big Jamal Adams guy.
No, I thought the Jets won that trade immediately.
Yeah.
I didn't.
All right. Let's move on to some of our juicier stuff. We got r/Dynasty and Twitter recap. First one comes from r/Dynasty, and they're talking about selling first and what you should do. And I think there's no better person to kick this off than Frank.
All right, so I think that selling first, especially before the season, just so to go through the post for those who aren't watching on YouTube, this newbie a Titans fan, said, note to self, don't ever sell your first-round picks during the offseason. So he said, I'm in 15 Dynasty leagues. I have sold in 3 of those leagues first to other teams because he thought that his team would be a contender. Surprise, surprise. He went 0-3 in one of them, 1-2 in a couple of others, and he's just not having the season that he expected. All in all, he said, I'm never selling firsts in the offseason again. And this, like JT said, this is definitely a topic that we had kind of covered and went into on previous podcasts, but I just kind of want to reiterate some of the rules that I follow for trading my first-round picks, especially before the season starts. And the first rule is that you have to remember that you're probably selling these picks at a loss. Like, unless you actually make or win the championship, or you just get a phenomenal value deal at the time, you're probably selling the pick at a loss. And kind of going into that, like, there were deals that I thought and my league mates thought, hey, you easily won that trade at the time, that turned out to really not be clear wins. An example could be I sold Keenan Allen for a first and Kyle Allen in our league, and at the time, and even now, it's not a terrible trade, but that first-round pick ended up being DeAndre Swift, who is the clearly more valuable player, right? So the second rule that I kind of get into with this is, if I'm going to trade my first-round pick before the season, it's got to be some guy that I'm going to hold through the rough times if they happen. I'm not trading it for some dude that, like, oh, well, if, like, a CEH maybe. It's like, oh, well, I just need a running back. Fuck it. I'll trade for CEH. He's the one available. No. If I need to be confident enough when this player hits a downturn, or if they hit a downturn, that, dude, I don't care. I bought this player for the long term because I realized that I'm probably selling this pick at a loss. So, third rule, which kind of goes along with this guy, don't panic. It's week 3. Week 3 is not the week to panic in Dynasty leagues. And this is just a good rule in general. Never panic in week 3. You panic when shit has actually hit the fan, and then from the fan, it has hit the wall. You don't panic when the shit has not been thrown yet. Like, you need to panic when you're actually going in the dumps. I always say it every podcast, it seems like. I was 0-3 the past 2 years in our Dynasty League. Went out and made the playoffs, made a championship. I'm like at the league leader of playoff wins. I think Lounis is actually one above me, but you get the point. Like, so if you're going to trade your first, you got to be calculated. You got to trade it for guys that you believe in, and you can't panic.
Yeah,
I agree. Especially this year where it's an extra game in the regular season, where it's like week 3 is way too early.
To piggyback off this, I think trading your first in the offseason, like Frank said, it's not a don't do it. You just got to be careful with it because, like, I think it's a very not to say newbie move here, but like players that are new to Dynasty, they don't understand necessarily the value of first-round picks right when they get into it. And I think it's very easy to go, oh, yeah, I'm giving you my first-round pick for a guy that's going to be good this year. And, like, you don't realize that come the offseason and you're sitting in the draft and you go, wow, shit, I really could have had DeAndre Swift here and my team would look a whole lot better. It's just something you got to, like, step back and be like, okay, who am I looking at in the future? Unless you're really ready to win a championship that second and that guy's going to put you over the hump and you're 100% confident that guy's going to put you over the hump, it's a really like, hold on here. What am I doing?
Yeah, before JT, we got some tweets you want to bring up on DeAndre Swift. So I'll let you do that after this last point. If you're a new player, don't trade your first-round pick in the first year. Just don't do it.
Yeah.
There's obviously exceptions. Oh, if I'm getting Tyreek Hill for a first-round pick, like, okay, there are some deals you just don't pass up. But generally speaking, it's a bad idea, and you're going to take the bait.
I completely agree with that.
The one last thing I want to add is I think the worst move a veteran player can do is you think you're a contender, you look at your team, and you see you have a weakness at wide receiver. Kind of like what Frank was saying, but a little bit different. Like, you're like, okay, I could definitely win, but I just need this one veteran wide receiver to carry me forward. Let me go spend it on Julio Jones, Allen Robinson, I don't know, Mike Evans. Like, let me just go and spend it on this receiver. Like, you could just wait a couple weeks into the season and see what's going on, and you could have a way better deal just these 3 weeks in, because now you have guys like that Reddit user who is now panicking and saying, I'm already out of playoffs, where you can go and get a better deal. It's just, it doesn't really make sense if you're a competitor to then try and, like Frank said in past podcasts, win the offseason, like win the championship in the offseason. It's not going to happen.
Side note, don't tell anyone, but right now, when people are panicking, that's the best time to trade a player.
Yeah.
Don't tell anyone.
All right. Now, moving on. This is kind of a celebration of me segment. JT. You guys are about to get like a 5 to 10 minute celebration of
giant
me.
jerk sesh.
Yeah.
Right. Can you just like mute him for like 5 minutes and just let him go on his rant?
So here's the tweet. It's DeAndre Swift was in a route on 63% of the Lions passing plays in his last game. That's actually 68% of the Lions pass plays. So then this is Dwayne McFarland on Twitter. Context matters. Good follow. So he goes back. PPR finishes for backs between 60 and 70% of routes and at least 40% of the attempts since 2011. 16, 3, 4, 5, 9, 1, 3, 5, 1, 2, 3, 9, 3, 1. Huge season coming and huge career coming for DeAndre Swift. JT, what say you?
Duh.
Real quick, JT, before you go into your I just want to see where we're standing right now with reactions 3 weeks in. JT, who do you value more right now between Swift or Jonathan Taylor?
Oh, good question, Lounis. You could go with 3rd and 20 Dynasty rankings at 3rd20.com.
I didn't know if you updated your rankings yet for the week 3.
Oh, I do have week 3 updated. I really didn't move a whole lot of people that much. Sorry to go on this like little side swipe tangent right now, but I have DeAndre Swift just a little bit behind Jonathan Taylor, and what many would consider a madman's rankings, I have Jonathan Taylor at 10 overall as far as dynasty prospects. I have DeAndre Swift at 14, which is actually the 13th player right behind rookie pick 101.
Okay.
Definitely a madman to most, but I'm sticking to it. The thing is, I hate victory lapping Twitter. These next 5 to 10 minutes might sound like me victory lapping.
Nice.
10 minutes.
Well, we have another player coming up who I want to touch on for a minute.
Yeah. Oh God.
But
so it sucks.
But my thing is, right, like the signs were there. I think it's what, kind of like a lesson. I'm not going to be trying to be too preachy here, but DeAndre Swift led the rookie running backs in targets last year. He was behind CEH in keep trade cut rankings as early as as soon as just right before the season started. I'm pretty sure he was behind CEH. And I wrote in the evaluating the 2020 RB class, also on 3rd20.com, that if I could trade CEH for DeAndre Swift, I would do that 100 times out of 100. Because it was just like the narratives against Swift were he's on a bad offense, so he's not going to get the ball, and they're going to rest him because he's on this bad offense, and they don't want to use him up. And the pros to CEH, not to make this like a negative CEH thing, was he's on a good offense, and they're going to use him because it's a high-powered offense. Neither of them really looked at the players, but when you were looking at the players, like DeAndre Swift to me was such clearly a better prospect. He was my 1B to Taylor's 1A in my rookie draft process. I've said that before on the podcast. And it's just like, don't go for, I feel like too many people fall for narratives that just are not true. Like they just make sense to people, and it's just easier to conceptualize. Like, player on bad offense is going to be bad. Player on good offense is going to be good. And that's just another big mistake people make. And in PPR leagues, we're not in really PPR. He's incredible. We're in half PPR, which I think is the format to go by. He's, RB5, RB6. I don't know what he is currently. Either RB5 or RB6, which I think 5, yeah, way above where his ADP was in redraft and whatnot. And he was like RB 14 going in during the offseason in Dynasty. So,
well, that's what I wanted to touch on was that, first off, everyone is victory lapping DeAndre Swift on Twitter. I don't know what happened with him because he had the weirdest offseason ever. The very beginning of the offseason, and right now, he would be a consensus top 2 round starter pick. He'd probably be back up to the first round, which if you look at the Ryan McDowell mocks, Dynasty startup mocks back months ago right around like February, DeAndre Swift was a first round, very end of the first round startup pick. And then he sunk to like the 3rd or 4th round, which was just weird. It was so bad that someone who at the beginning of the offseason, at that time when he was at that first round, second round price, I was adamantly against drafting him, got to the point where I ended up with him in a bunch of leagues. So, 2 things. First off, how the fuck is everyone victory lapping him when I ended up with him? I never thought in a million years I'd be drafting DeAndre Swift. I'm like, what the hell? Like, the value is just too good to pass up. Second off, like, kind of what JT said, I don't really think that the prospect gap was so big with DeAndre Swift and with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but there does get to a point where it's like a guy is dropping so far and he does have enough talent that it's just worth the risk, even if you don't necessarily love them.
I think the only stuff you could point to with Swift is what was going around him in the team and why he was dropping. Like, people look too much into the stars. They're like, oh, they have Jared Goff now instead of Matt Stafford. That's a ding. Oh, Anthony Lynn said he's the B back in this offense. Like, that's a ding. Like, there's a lot of like slight things where, and especially when it's the offseason and you're just like looking for reasons to either build up your players or take down your players. Like, those are 2 easy narratives to kind of latch onto, which really brought them down. But obviously it wasn't, through 3 weeks, obviously that wasn't the right move. Yeah. And smart players like Frank ended up with DeAndre Swift.
Well, that's a tough thing that, even I struggle with, kind of getting on a tangent here, is like, being able to look at reports and even like analysts that you respect on these different Reddit and Twitter and YouTube platforms, and being able to just disagree and not buy into hype and bait. Sometimes it ends up panning out, but I think more times than not, it is just hype and it is just bait, and you have to kind of keep a level ahead about what you're taking in. Last thing on Swift, I actually think he's gone back to being way overvalued. I know, JT, you'll disagree with that, but I've seen so many people on Twitter saying, oh, top 5 running back. Oh, there's only CMC and like some of the other tippy top backs that would take over
I saw
Swift.
That tweet. Yeah.
Where
someone had him RB4.
I still have him around where I had him before. I definitely bumped him up a little bit. Like, I'm not a Neanderthal, but I don't think that he's in like that upper echelon tier of running backs for me. And I'd sell if I could get that price.
He's my RB3 right now. That's my confession.
Damn.
Would you still have a buy rating on Swift?
Depends on what the
what is he on Keep Trade Cut right now?
He's RB5 on Keep Trade Cut, but I don't think it's like that far. Like, he's actually next to Jonathan Taylor, which I think
Okay,
if I could buy Taylor,
let me give you a thing. Let me give you a little thing. So you're taking him over DK Metcalf, right?
Yeah, I have my rankings right here. So yeah, shoot away.
Yeah, so you're taking Swift over Metcalf. You're taking Swift over Saquon?
Yep.
Okay. What about Mr. Lawrence, Trevor Lawrence?
No. Barely,
Justin Jefferson?
No. Also no for Justin Jefferson. Or those two guys.
Okay, interesting. Kyle Pitts?
Would rather have him over Kyle Pitts.
But he's like right around that Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, they're right in, like, you just named like 5 people surrounding him, basically. I don't know if you're looking at my stuff right now.
No, I'm looking at my rankings to see generally like around where he'd be.
Yeah, that's the area I have him in.
Okay, so like you would take him at that, what I think probably is like a Nick Chubb price. You know, like okay, if you could,
he's right next to Nick Chubb in the rankings.
So it'd probably be like 2 firsts and a halfway decent player. Like 2 firsts, Allen Robinson maybe would be like his price. I'm thinking off the top of my head. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you're selling low on Allen Robinson, but that's semantics. But yeah. All right.
Are you still buying at that kind of valuation?
Especially if the 2022 first. I don't think we're getting a running back that matches DeAndre Swift from 2022. If we're talking 2023 first, I'm taking. I'd probably take the 2023 first. I mean, I know that's a look ahead and it's probably a little dangerous for me, but like there are some 2023 running backs I really like when compared to 2022.
2023 quarterbacks as well.
Right. So that's the reason though, that class is way better than this class coming up, in my opinion. And for that reason, I just value those picks way more. So
all right, JT, whatever. Here you go. Round 2, bud.
Round 2. I hope everyone
at Dalton Guru FF on Twitter, Dalton Cates. Most PPR points all time through 3 games for a 21-year-old rookie wide receiver. Number 1, Stephon Diggs, 58.3. Number 2, Jamar Chase, 56.8. 3, 4, and 5 are Randy Moss, Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins. Jamar Chase is such a special wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, this is stuff we were trying to tell you guys, or at least I was trying to tell you guys earlier, and I was high on. To go back to my madman.
Simmer down.
All right. Where's Jamar Chase on your dynasty rankings right now? Yeah. Where's Jamar Chase on your dynasty rankings right now?
I don't know. He's definitely.
Yeah, he's my wide receiver too.
I mean,
you don't have him that high. I just know you don't have him that high.
I mean, I haven't updated my rankings since the beginning of the season, to be completely honest with you. But he's definitely a top 5 wide receiver.
Receiver 13.
In the start of the season, I think I had him in my top 10, not top 5. I'd probably had him around like 8.
I had him around 8 or 9 to start the season. He's definitely bumped up a few spots. So there you go.
I had him over Hopkins and even Tyler.
Because I still had Jefferson.
Now you made me victory lap.
Let's get out of the victory lap and let's get into the looking forward.
Jake did this. Yeah. My thing with Jamar Chase, is I still think there's a lot like. It might just me being like making a fake narrative in my head, but I still feel like there's a decent amount of Jamar Chase haters who can point to the quality of opponents they played, T. Higgins getting injured. There's a few reasons why you would say Jamar Chase wouldn't be good. And I just think
him and Burrow's chemistry right now is insane.
Yeah.
The timing on that first touchdown throw.
Yeah. It's almost like they played together or something before.
That's what I'm saying.
It's like, yeah. But my thing is like, I just think like this is like floor is a strong word for Jamar Chase. Like obviously he could have worse weeks, but we're seeing Joe Burrow. We were talking about before. I forget if we were recording at this point or not, but Joe Burrow had passed for 18 times last game. And he was passing for 40 times before. Yeah, now I'm saying it. We definitely talked about on the podcast. Like, if we're watching a Bengals offense that's passing the ball 35 times a game, like, what can Jamar Chase do then? What can T. Higgins do then? I know I'm super high on Jamar Chase. I'm super high on T. Higgins too. Like, I think now with T. Higgins getting a shoulder injury and whatnot, not to kind of derail it into a T. Higgins discussion, but I'd be going out and trying to buy T. Higgins as much as I can. I wish Jake didn't hear that, so I could actually go and buy it from Jake in our league. But these are two players who I know Frank's on the sell all Bengals train. I'm on the buy all Bengals, not named Joe Mixon train. Although I like Mixon, I don't want to buy him for.
What you got against Mixon, man?
I had Mixon for a while.
What you got against him, man?
No,
everyone's out here hating on.
I just
want
to sell him the hype. We'll talk about that in a second.
Well, that's the thing is I don't think the hype is really surrounding Joe Mixon. I think there's still a lot of people like Frank that's just like he sucks.
And Mixon's getting a lot of hype, at least that I've seen. Maybe not on this pod.
I've seen people Victor
there are enough people in leagues that there will be someone that's buying Mixon. Yeah, every league.
I like Mixon a lot, but I just his price is probably going to be a little too high for me. But he's still very good.
Back to Chase though, because I actually do want to talk about Chase still.
Okay.
Listen, I was definitely lower on Ja'Marr Chase coming to the season. Listen, I'm not mad about it. Like, go ahead, I'm wrong. I wasn't drafting that high anyway. The question is I do. Like, what are you gonna do? Sorry. The question is, I have two questions for you, JT. One, would you trade 101 for him in a random year? Is he over that?
If it's 2022, yeah. Well, he's right. Well, all right. The issue is on my rankings, he's actually right after 102. Wait, no, these don't look like updated because I have Ja'Marr Chase past Kyle Pitts now.
Okay, but just regardless of what your rankings say currently, if they're wrong or broken, like, are you taking him over? So let's just do 2022 101. You're taking Ja'Marr Chase over 2022 101.
Yes.
I'm assuming you're taking him over Kyle Pitts.
Yep.
Dalvin Cook.
Yep. Easy.
Man, like that. This is a weird one because I didn't love Chase. Because there were aspects of his tape that I didn't like, but I'm not going to deny the fact that the guy's a super talented player. Like, I'm not dropping him like, oh, he's wide receiver 20. Like, he's still like a wide receiver 1 to me. And I actually don't mind if people go out and buy him even now at a somewhat inflated value, just because he really does feel like one of those receivers that you're buying for the long term. And if you fire Zach Taylor, which if I'm a Ja'Marr Chase owner, I'm hoping for, because, you could just look at the Steelers game. I don't know why he's not getting 10 targets in that football game, to be completely honest. I think that, like, every time they threw it to him, it was a fucking touchdown. You throw it to him another 10 times, I can only imagine what the hell happened. I actually like buying him, which is going to be weird for me to say. Like, and he's a good long-term investment.
Yeah, he almost had a 33% target share, and he got 5 targets. That's how little the Bengals had.
What is the line, though? What is the line in the sand of what you're willing to give up for Chase?
The issue is, like, where my team is, right? Because, like, we just talked about him, but DeAndre Swift is, like, right there. And at that point, it's like, just what does my team need? Like, is my team looking to contend right now? I'm getting DeAndre Swift. And my team's looking for 5 years down the line. It's Chase. And that's kind of my line in the sand, I would say. At most of the top tier quarterbacks, I wouldn't be trading for Ja'Marr Chase. Like, Trevor Lawrence is probably that line in the sand right there. Like, I'm not giving up Trevor Lawrence for Ja'Marr Chase, but that's about as far as I'd push it. After that, like, it's free reign.
So you're thinking, like, if you're a team – now, I don't want to say this, but let's just assume you're a halfway decent team. You're not the top team in the league, but you're a good team. You have a running back like Saquon Barkley. And then you lose your next 2 weeks, and you can do Saquon for Ja'Marr Chase straight up.
Yeah,
like you're doing that. Now, would you add anything on to Saquon, or at that point where you just look at other directions?
I'd give Saquon in a second. Like, if my team doesn't feel like – I don't know where Saquon's going to be after this year. I still believe in Saquon. I still really like Saquon. But to me, the difference between Saquon and Chase and where I want my team heading and how I feel comfortable about my team in the future, I'd give up Saquon in a second for Chase. I don't know if that's probably a wild take for consensus.
Honestly, like, it's funny because, like, I wouldn't personally do it, but I don't hate it just because – I do think that Ja'Marr Chase's ceiling case and what a lot of people think is his floor case really is that dominant perennial top 10 receiver.
Yeah. That's what I've been trying to say before. I think we at least acknowledge that could be possible during the offseason and whatnot.
I mean, yeah, I still don't think it's going to happen, but
yeah, hater.
I'm not. Yeah, but the thing is that I'm not going to be one of those trolls that's like.
No, I got you.
Like, I understand that I'm going against the data analytics and I'm going against the consensus, and you kind of just have to understand the fact that when you're doing that, the guy's ceilings that you're fading is going to be super high. It's like DeAndre Swift, right? There is a line, and there's a certain point where the value that you're getting a player for matches, and I'll draft a player that I don't like when that happens. Yeah. Jamar Chase just never reached that.
Yes, Liz.
So Jamar Chase right now is, I think, probably he's in my top 5, probably 3 or 4. I think the only 2 people I have ahead of him right now are Jefferson and DK Metcalf, and then him and AJ Brown are very close for me right now. I was just wondering, in your opinion, what do you think is the price difference in, I guess, wide receiver 1 Jefferson compared to Chase right now? Because I was thinking about it. I was like, oh, but then I was like, it's not as much as I would think.
I still think it's easy Jefferson for me.
I'm saying the price difference.
Oh,
fuck. Like if you're trading Jefferson, what on top of Chase do you want?
They're like right there for me. I mean, personally, I wouldn't mind doing a 1-for-1 swap. I just like both of them a whole lot. Like, to me, either way, I'm getting a top 15 dynasty asset. So like whatever.
It's almost like, what is the price difference between Patrick Mahomes and Kyler?
Yeah.
That's actually a pretty fair comparison.
It's just an awkward trade to do unless you really want that move up, because at the end of the day, you're going to have to overpay to get the better guy.
It almost seems like a trade that will never happen, in my opinion. Like because to move from these guys is just so hard to do. Like, you just have to overpay. And like, if I have Chase and I want Jefferson for Chase, like, I'm probably not willing to pay whatever the Jefferson
they want.
Whatever they
it's
want.
Just you might as well use that value that you're giving up to go fix a different area of your team.
Yeah, it just feels like a trade that's just not going to happen. All right, but enough pat on the backs for JT. Pat on the backs all around. But let's move on. Frank,
I got it, JT. I got this.
All right, you got it.
So this was an interesting thread that I found on Reddit, which is something that I've kind of been saying a lot of the offseason and have really put to use in our Dynasty League, the one that we're all in. And the Reddit post is titled "Player Valuation Fallacies" by L. Burninator.
Yeah,
a Lions fan.
For him.
Apparently, people know him. The Dynasty movement, I think. Either him or someone else is part of the Dynasty Process Trade Calculator. But his general argument is that the top players in Dynasty leagues are kind of overvalued, right? Like, the price difference between one of his examples was Nick Chubb to Kareem Hunt just isn't worth paying, and it isn't worth the amount of fantasy points that is differentiated in between the two of them compared to the price, right? So he brings up that. He brings up D-Hop to Tyler Lockett and Robert Woods, that D-Hop is worth 11% more than Tyler Lockett and Robert Woods combined, but the difference in fantasy points is like, I think he brings it up here, something like he brings up 4 points here. I don't know exactly where it is, but general theory is, why the hell are you paying this premium price for the top players when you could be picking up the Robert Woodsons and the Tyler Lockett's and pocketing the difference? And I actually really agree with that, because that's something I've been trying to do. But I don't think necessarily selling the top tier players is the correct way to phrase it. I think it's more selling on the hype, right? When players have that hype, that, and to some extent the top tier because they have the name value, right? But it's just like, you take a player A and a player B. Player A has hype. Player B does not have hype. But they're generally speaking the same player, right? In terms of like a short-term outlook. And I mean, he brought up Tyler Lockett. That's probably a pretty good example to someone like T. Higgins, right? Even though everyone knows T. Higgins for the long term, I'd rather have him. And you have all these people, oh, if you're a rebuilder, T. Higgins. Oh, if you're a contender, Tyler Lockett. Just that lazy freaking take. But I really love doing this, especially for receivers. Just selling off of the hype, pocketing the difference. Using that difference to stonk even more and more and more until all of a sudden you have a ton of value and you still have a competing team. So Why do I do this for receivers, though? Because the longevity is not priced in for the older receivers. When you look at Tyler Lockett, Robert Woods, I don't think is a great example. Cooper Kupp, all these 27, 28, 29-year-old stud receivers, you're saying, oh, well, they only got 1 or 2 good years left. That's it. But then you look at T. Higgins, you say, oh, well, he's got 7 years left. Regardless of whether that's true or not, you are taking the longevity factor of wide receivers, something that has been proven basically by the data analytics, and betting on it just on the tail end, and then getting a ton of value to then go in and then pick more good young receivers. The one thing that I will say about this, though, because listen, I've been doing this all the time, right? Taking hyped players and trying to sell into veteran players, the non-hyped players, the non-flashy players that get points, pocket the difference. There's a line in the sand between a real stud and a non-stud. A real just Tyreek Hill or a Justin Jefferson, where it's just not worth doing this, right? Where it's not worth saying, oh, I'm going to go from player A on the hype to player B and pocket the difference. So I love this strategy. I'm curious to hear what you guys are thinking about it. I'm adapting this in all of my leagues. After those players, I draw the line in the sand. Like Nick Chubb, I'm not going to do it for. Justin Jefferson, I'm not going to do it for. But everyone else, yes.
I mean, I think it's a fantastic strategy because I think a lot of dynasty players get caught up in this age factor that you brought up. You know, a lot of players, they look at D-Hop and they go, oh, he's 29 years old. He only has 1 or 2 years left. He's not worth that of a T. Higgins who has never once put up the numbers that D-Hop has put up year in and year out. In any year he's played 16 games, I think he's been a top 10 wide receiver or something like that. He's been incredible for, 7, 8, 9 years. And there's really no slowing down, especially now that he's tied with Kyler Murray. And he's a guy that you could probably, like Frank said, stonk into. I mean, maybe not as easily just because, he is a big name wide receiver, but to pocket the difference and like Frank said, then you just reload on those young wide receivers. They gain hype again, and you could sell them off for veterans again and more picks. And it's just a cycle that continues, and it really keeps your team, your draft picks, you keep piling up, and your team stays pretty much relatively the same just because guys like Cooper Kupp, as we've seen this year, you probably could have got him in the offseason for maybe a first-round pick. I mean, definitely a first-round pick, but not much more than that. And he's receiver 1 right now. I know it's only 3 weeks, but, he's a great example of this.
JT and Lounis, I'll let you guys go, but I just want to clear the air for a couple of things on this. First off, I really do not recommend doing this method from going from one hyped young player to another. It could definitely work, but I do think to a certain extent you have to have guys that you really believe in. I use a 0-1-2 system where it's just like, okay, twos are twos, man. I believe in them through and through, and I mean, I'm just going to value them way over consensus. And if I'm going from a 2 to a 1, it's not worth pocketing the difference. I think you can really fall for the bait doing that, going from a Justin Jefferson to a Chase Claypool. Like, I think that there are people that could talk themselves into doing something like that when that's a massive bait. And the other thing I will say is you gotta, I think the best way to do this is going for the consensus underpriced players. Dude, we all knew coming into the season that guys like Adam Thielen and guys like Keenan Allen are underpriced. But when you try to buy them straight up, they're impossible to get because the owner just wants more than they're worth. The only way you're going to get them is by giving them that flashy, shiny object. Mm-hmm. And then last thing, I think this is really, you could do it with other positions, but I think receivers is where it really pans out. JT, as you were saying.
I think you guys get close to being like to what I agree with, but then it kind of just misses, especially that last point, Frank. I think the flashy players are like the best ones to move around, in my opinion, like moving from flashy young guys to flashy young guys, right? Because A.J. Brown is someone that I would be trying to move around before if I could. Like A.J. Brown for DJ Moore in a first, A.J. Brown for T. Higgins in a first, A.J. Brown for maybe Chase Claypool in a first. That's about as far as I go. if I'm picking a first round pick on top of AJ Brown, like I like AJ Brown, but a lot of his production did come from touchdowns. So, there were reasons why to be worried about AJ Brown. And it's just like I'm getting still this young, flashy receiver that I like, and I'm getting a first round pick on it. That's something I would do. Justin Jefferson is kind of where I might draw the line. Him and Patrick Mahomes, and I'm trying to think, like Kyler, like there are certain like top tier players that I'm not going to want to do this with. But even Lamar Jackson, like I was trying to do it with Lamar Jackson 2 years ago when I thought Lamar Jackson was getting overvalued. He was like quarterback 2. And I reached out to Lounis, and this was before Kyler Murray went off, and I was like, "Hey, I'd give you Lamar Jackson for Kyler in a first." I mean, Lounis didn't do it, but I'm sure in many other leagues that's a trade that would happen because you will go on the
Lamar just came off his MVP season.
Yeah. So I think these like flashy big name players, like you can move them for players that are similar values. Obviously, there are times I guess you can get burnt. But that's if you're going after the wrong prospects. If you're going after the wrong, there are certain, like, Najee Harris is a guy that I didn't like. If you're trying to move Jonathan Taylor for Najee Harris in a first, that's not something I advocate for. It's something that you could have almost certainly done, not something I would advocate for. So there's kind of just this, like, keep in mind, figure out who the good prospects are or whatnot, and go get those guys for the flashy guys. I don't know. That's just how
I agree with that. I think that for me personally, it's easier to fall into the bait when you're giving up a Nick Chubb and saying, "Oh yeah, I'm getting back whoever, Najee Harris, maybe like you said, or David Montgomery, or Clyde Edwards-Helaire, or Mixon," and that's not a gap that I think is worth taking the value. Whereas I think it's a lot easier to pull off at the receiver position where, it's like similar where you have 5 guys that way outscore everyone else. But, wide receiver 11 to wide receiver 24 is generally like a pretty small gap. And that's the gap that I like to stonk instead of trying to play the game of, oh, I'm going from QB2 to QB7 and seeing if it pans out. Like, yes, if it, in my system, if I'm going from a 2 to a 2 and pocketing the difference, I'll do that. But I don't think that everyone's going to be able to do that successfully. So I don't want people to get burned.
Yeah. So the thing I'll say about this strategy, this is something where like this can be extremely effective, but you really have to know your shit. Like this is one of those where you have to know where to draw the line in certain tiers of players. I think people, everyone here, because we've been playing Dynasty for a few years, is capable of doing it. But I think if someone is kind of just getting into Dynasty and hasn't like had experience with like how these tiers can shake up year to year, how easily certain guys can go up and down, you don't want to fall into the trap of, I saw as one of the comments on the post, which was a good point, where you're like, oh, these 2 players combined are better than this one player or these 2 assets. But at the end of the day, like him producing close to both of their production in one slot in your starting lineup, that gives an advantage. So that's where I say is, where you kind of have to be smart and experienced with it, where it's like you know where to draw the line so that you're not in that situation with certain tiers of players.
We gave rosy examples, I feel like, that we were aligned with, right? These were moves that we would have done, each move that we said. But there are ways, like you could have gone and got Julio or Ayuk right now, and you'd be feeling a little bit burnt. I mean, obviously, times will change, and who's to say we're still only 3 weeks in. But there are ways that you could certainly get burnt if you're not following closely what's going on.
I completely agree, and that's why when I said this initially, I'm like, that's why I want to avoid some of the more younger, uncertain players, just because you're minimizing your chance of being burnt. And like, okay, Julio is a player that you could do it for, but what I mentioned was, I want to go for those undervalued 26, 27, 28-year-olds. The Tyler Lockett's, I think, is just a good example. And that's a guy I wasn't necessarily high on at the beginning of the offseason. But by the end, I was trying to scoop up shares. And, it's like in the startup drafts video that we did, the pseudo vets, like a Deebo Samuel. Once again, a rosy example, but he's a dude that was a super young player, not being valued like a super young player.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to look like, I don't know. We're sniffing
Mike Williams, though. Mike Williams is one.
He's someone we want.
He could have been a great one. None of us bought him. That would have been a good buy. Even Hollywood, the pseudo vet. Like Hollywood had like a shitty, he had a shitty game, dropped a couple passes. But if you had him in your lineup, you're probably pretty happy.
Yeah, I'm still out on Hollywood. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, I feel like we hit it right this year. I don't know if that's just luck or whatnot. I'm going to go with his skill.
But even now, really I think Jarvis Landry's a dude that, I mean, I wouldn't go from a really sick receiver into him unless I'm getting a ton of value, but you can kind of, he's a dude that you could buy at a good price. And I think when he comes back, he's going to be pretty consistent.
I mean, I think Odell's even another one.
I think Odell. I was about to say Odell and Sutton were two examples of those last offseason. People forgot Sutton is still young and just had like 1,000-yard receiver.
I mean, I think the Giants' offense.
I think it's more he's getting fucked by that offense.
Yeah.
All right. Let's
Corey Davis.
I like Corey Davis.
Scrapping the barrel a little bit.
Corey Davis is someone I would have been. Corey Davis and Juju are two players I would have been trying to do this method with, and right now I would not be loving.
Yeah, but the last thing though, too, JT, it's not like going and buying Cooper Kupp or Lockett or whatever was rocket science. Like these guys were top 24 receivers for a lot of the most previous years. It's not like you were buying someone unproven.
That's
like if you're going for a crazy maneuver where you're projecting a guy that's been finishing like way up and down the standings to all of a sudden be consistent for the next 2 years, that's where you get burned. Yeah, we need to move on. This is my fault. We spent too much time on this.
Yeah,
it's funny. We talked before the episode. I'm like, guys, we can't spend too much time on stuff. Here I am talking everyone's ears off about the same topic.
Last part of yep.
I got you, JT. Charles Chill, FFB on Twitter. Scott Connor. Trevor Lawrence leads the league at bad throws, 27 at bad throw percentage, 23.3%. Nobody with more than 50 attempts is over 16.3%. He's been pressured on only 15% of dropbacks, which is seventh least among quarterbacks with more than 50 attempts. Argument is, can't blame the O-line. He's just been playing poorly. And then Ray GQ, another guy popular in the Dynasty Devy community. I got to scroll down and find him. He's saying that it's kind of like the way the news has been going for all the rookie quarterbacks. Here it is. We talked yesterday about this yesterday. Lawrence and Jones look like rookie quarterbacks. Fields look lost, but again, first start versus a good defense. Wilson has looked totally lost, but he's had a brutal schedule. And he argues that because of the success of recent rookies that we've been baited. JT?
I just think the funny thing about this is we were saying before, like, there's the 5 first-round quarterbacks. They can't all be good. Like studies, we've looked in the past, not studies, but history says there's going to be at least one bust. Currently, it looks like no one's good right now. But I do think this is the unfortunate reality that is, like, these are rookie quarterbacks who are getting thrusted into positions early. Now, I will preface this by saying, on bad rosters, I'll preface this by saying, I think at least 2 or 3 of these guys are just not going to recover. They're not they'll recover in the sense of they're not getting sacked 10 times a game. They're not throwing 4 interceptions. They're not, whatever. But they're not going to be the guys that you thought they were, where they were all almost top 15 dynasty quarterback picks. And that's just the unfortunate reality. Now,
I mean,
the one thing I'll say is, we're only 3 weeks in, and that's still too early to tell which of these guys aren't the right guys. And if you're convinced one way or another, I think you're just doing Dynasty wrong. The only one that I'm sticking by is actually the one who this tweet was about, was Trevor Lawrence, where he's such a good prospect that I'm willing to go down with that. Like, I mean, if he doesn't show you anything for the rest of the season,
he's too talented to still doubt him. Already doubt him.
I'm still sticking with how I had the rookies ranked before these 3 games is still how I have the rookies ranked after these 3 games. I think it's just my big takeaway that I want to say.
I completely agree. Most of these rookies, like behind bad O-lines, specifically Wilson, especially with the bad O-line. Mac Jones is still getting used to it. It's not like he has elite weapons around him. The Jags are just kind of a shithole of a team, and I don't know about that coaching staff.
Poor Jacksonville listeners.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I mean, you guys still have your franchise quarterback, so it's there to be happy about. Justin Fields, I don't know what the fuck Matt Nagy's doing. I feel terrible for Justin Fields, but I have not changed my opinion on him. It's just too early, and you got to realize the situations a lot of these guys are in. Zach Wilson's running for his life most plays. Like, I'm not really panicking on anyone yet. It's just I think we got spoiled by guys like Herbert, who like looked amazing, but that's not going to be every rookie.
I mean, yes, we definitely got spoiled between the likes of Burrow and Herbert last year. But I guess my question to you is, outside of Trevor Lawrence, because I think we're all on the same page here, where he's just too talented. This coaching staff is really doing him a disservice. I think we all feel the same way. Who out of the other four are you most confident in? I just want to go around.
It's all going to be the same guys that we liked before the draft.
Yeah, I think none of our rankings have changed, unless someone's rankings have changed since say it. But for me, it's still Trey Lance.
Only thing I want to say on this is a big fuck you to all three of you, because I still stand by and said it before that Daniel Jones would and looks like he's having more success this year than drafting a rookie quarterback like Justin Fields or Mac Jones. It's just, if you're trying to win games, it's not with a rookie quarterback. They've never made a Super Bowl. And it's not looking like
Daniel Jones won games.
Daniel Jones
won games.
Dude, yeah. Let's blame him for that Washington football team loss where a dude goes outside.
Did you see what Jalen Hurts did against that Atlanta
defense?
Frank
brought up Daniel Jones this episode. It wasn't me. I didn't bring up Daniel Jones. Frank brought up Daniel Jones this episode.
Dude, everyone is just freaking Daniel Jones's complaints. Daniel Jones, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson all have done 2 times over. I don't want to fucking hear it. If Daniel Jones had the performance Justin Fields just did, everyone would be calling for his head, not just his starting job. Get the fuck out of here.
Daniel Jones is in the situation Justin Fields was just in.
If Justin Fields has the game that Daniel Jones did on that Thursday night game against a good Washington football team defense, everyone's crowning him the next Patrick Mahomes for years to come.
I hate to say it, but I agree with Frank. And although I'm a Giants fan and the Giants are 0-3 and look horrendous, it's honestly not been Daniel Jones' fault.
The most egregious part of all this, though, and that you guys just let fly by, is Frank going, no rookie quarterbacks won a Super Bowl, as if like you're putting Daniel Jones in the conversation of like one day he can win a Super Bowl. Daniel Jones will never win a Super Bowl.
No, I'm just saying, if you're trying to win games, why is it going to be with a rookie? Like, acting like putting a rookie quarterback in the Giants and all of a sudden all their problems are solved is just baloney.
Well, like, the one team I'll say.
The benefit of drafting.
The benefit is long term. Yeah, go ahead. It doesn't help you shit this year. All right, we're moving on. Sorry.
Dude, hold on.
This is not doing shit this year anyway.
Gardner Minshew. Is Gardner Minshew winning any game so far for the Jaguars?
Gardner Minshew.
He was the Jaguars quarterback last year.
Tyrod Taylor might be.
Doubt it, but. I think Trey Lance does just as well as Jimmy G in these first 3 games. I think they have the exact same record, and I think you're just building Trey Lance for the future.
Same.
We've seen Jimmy G take you a Super Bowl. He didn't win it. He's not winning it yet.
I think that's honestly such a unique case, just because the Niners had a very good roster.
It is a unique case. I'll agree.
And there's no reason that roster should have been picking 3rd overall in the first place. But
okay, we're going on. Next topic, we're going to talk about some Devy stuff. Speaking of
Devy
stuff, this dude, Jarek, I don't know how to say his name, Bacchus?
I'm going with Bacchus.
Something like that. This dude's a phenomenal follow. The whole Campus to Canton crew. These guys, go follow all their stuff because they're great. They have some solid charts. But I thought this was a pretty interesting chart here.
Kenneth Walker.
There's all these freaking random ass metrics: reception yard share, PPR points, dominator rating crap. I kind of wanted to pose a question to you guys. Okay, so we talked about Kenneth Walker last episode. We've mentioned Zach Charbonnet, 2 pretty damn good looking running back prospects, getting some first round dynasty rookie draft buzz right now. Any of these, obviously Breece Hall. Any of these other dudes that you guys like that are showing some nice metrics? Tyler Beatty from Mizzou's looking pretty fire.
I really like Zach Charbonnet. Is that how you say it? I always say Charbonnet. I've been on Zach for a little bit. He's the transfer from Michigan, where all the good prospects go die, is Michigan. And so I just think he's my outside flyer guy who I feel like still isn't getting the respect he kind of deserves. We saw what he did against LSU, which isn't necessarily a good team anymore, but he's done well against, actual college defenses. I don't know. He's just the one that I have my eyes on.
I will say some guy that listen, I haven't watched enough film or anything, but Rachaad White on Arizona State, I thought definitely caught my eye. And I mean, you're just looking at the numbers. I didn't really realize at first, like, all this receiving work that he's getting. It's just by far and away higher than everyone else, which could be something to see because, I mean, we've seen it, especially this year. Receiving running backs are more valuable than they've ever been. Yeah. And you're starting to really see a gap between the guys that get receiving work and the guys that just don't.
1,000%. I mean, the receiving stuff, like, it becomes so valuable now because, like, for example, a running back can have a good game as like a fantasy rusher. Say he has 18 carries for like 86 yards. That's still only getting you 8.6 fantasy points. It's not a good game from one of your starting running backs. So if the running back coming out has zero receiving ability, I'm a lot lower on them now. You've seen like the value of that with everyone, especially look at guys like DeAndre Swift. You look at guys like Aaron Jones. If they can't catch, I'm not really interested as much at all.
Last guy I wanted to bring up from this is Treylon Potts from Minnesota. Just really interesting to see him having a lot of success with Mo Ibrahim, another running back that I liked, getting injured. I'm pretty sure he's a running back that comes out this year, Treylon Potts, if he decides to. I don't really know if he's a senior or not, but interesting to see that he might be one of those players that could kind of rise out of the ashes, rise from nowhere as that backup running back. Maybe he was just stuck behind a more established back.
I think a guy that none of you have mentioned yet that I like, probably the best out of this group here, maybe obviously outside of Kenneth Walker, who I think is just an absolute stud, and Breece Hall for that matter. But Chris Rodriguez on Kentucky, he's just a guy that they use him all over the field. They use him in every which way, and I think he's broken like 200 yards in all-purpose yards in the past, 3 out of the first 4 games. He's a guy that's really impressed me so far, and I didn't really have on my radar prior to the season, but he's been doing really well against, SEC defenses, which is pretty much as close as you'll get to an NFL defense in college football.
Remember Lynn Bowden?
Yeah, good times. He's a good player. He doesn't really fit in the NFL. I mean, maybe a slightly underrated running back class. I think Kenneth Walker, everyone's saying that he's the new Javonte of this year. Maybe. It seems like we might be able to scrap something out of what's looking like a pretty weak class at the start.
I'm surprised Kyron Williams isn't listed.
As I say, for this class, the running backs are looking better and the quarterbacks are looking worse. That's the trend I've got.
Okay, we'll talk on the quarterbacks for like 2 seconds. But Jake, you mentioned in your article Treylon Burks.
Wow. What can I say about this player? I mean, he's a guy that's truly impressed me this season. He's a guy that, kind of went under the radar last year, and I think he's really just broken out this year. He's a guy that, tore his ACL in high school, and he's just kind of starting to pick back up where he left off finally, and he's impressed me. He's a big guy. I think he's 6'3", 215, or 225, excuse me. So he's a really big body wide receiver that really could beat you at all aspects of the field. He played most of his snaps actually out of the slot, which kind of surprised me for such a big guy. He has great hands. The knock on him is his route tree, but like I really think that's just more a function of
the offense
and then
DK Metcalf.
Yeah, exactly. We saw this with DK Metcalf where people are like, oh, he only runs straight. I'm like, okay, just wait. He's too talented. The routes he is asked to run, he runs great. He has ginormous hands. I think I saw he wears a custom size 5XL glove.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's just been crazy impressive. He put up another monster game this week, including an 87-yard touchdown or something nuts.
He went crazy this week against A&M.
And honestly, I just – there's a few guys that I think are in the running for this wide receiver 1 in this class, but I think he's the one leading the pack so far. Yeah.
Is there anyone that doesn't think he should be wide receiver 1 here?
I mean, there's still a long season left in college football, and there's a lot that could happen. But as through 4 weeks of college football, I don't think there's a doubt.
I have number one, dude. With how also like his athletic ability, with how big he is, he's not like a skinny 6'3". He's strong 6'3", and
if
how
he's
fast
not wide
he is.
receiver 1, he's probably pretty damn freaking close.
Yeah,
I mean he's not gonna run a 4.44 or anything like that. So he's not a blazer, but he beats you in many other ways. Exactly.
All right.
One last thing I want to say for Treylon Burks is that I feel like I almost get a little bit of like an Amari Cooper in him, where Amari Cooper, he's not he's way bigger than Amari Cooper, but he plays a little bit longer than you kind of expect, even from someone that's 6'3" in his size. It's like, dude, you see some of the catches and his catch rates, you're like, holy crap, he was able to get that far out? Like, holy crap. Yeah. Like, he was able to get his hands on that? My goodness. And on top of that, just like being able to have the ball in his hands, he really does seem like an all-around receiver.
Absolutely.
All right. Last guy, Jake?
Yeah, the other guy I wrote about in my article this week, check it out, third20.com, check it out, prospects of the week. Running back from Texas A&M, Isaiah Spiller. He is a big back, man. I didn't realize how big he was at first, but he is 6'1", 215. He's a guy that is just really likes to play to contact, and I really like to see that from running backs that don't shy away from the contact and are just not, get in there, put their shoulder down, run between the tackles, and just really old school hard knocks football here. The thing that I didn't like as much is that he's really a boom bust player. Like, a lot of his carries went for under 3 yards, but then he breaks the 67-yard touchdown, so his stats look fantastic. But the thing I really like about him, and we've talked about it earlier, is his receiving ability. A lot of backs nowadays, like, that PPR bonus points you're going to get is really what makes or breaks the running back 15 from the running back 5s. And I think he has a true ability here to be a great pass catcher out of the backfield, as well as be on the field for all 3 downs. I know Frank thinks pass blocking is not a great metric to look at here, but he's 6'1", and he's truly just a great pass blocker. Any quarterback will happily have him in the backfield, and he'll take a hit from a linebacker, DN, anybody, and he just absorbs it. So he's a guy I really like, and he'll probably end up going in the second round of the NFL draft. So he'll probably be in the back end first to early second of your rookie draft this coming off season.
Yeah, I love Isaiah Spiller. I think he's competing with me with Kenneth Walker, honestly, with how much I like him. I got put onto him last year in a very harsh way. When my Gators went to Texas A&M, I was feeling cocky, and he dropped 175 rushing yards on them. And since then, I've been paying attention to him, and he's good. He is the points Jake mentioned. He can pass protect and he can catch, which is huge. He'll be able to get on the field faster as a rookie, and he'll be able to play more downs. Which is the receiving ability and pass blocking is, even though I think Kenneth Walker is a better pure rusher, that's what makes it close for me with them too. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of him. He's going to be going early in rookie drafts.
I mean, my real quick just rankings right now, I probably still have Breece Hall 1, then Spiller.
Breece Hall's up there, yeah.
Then Charbonnet, then Kenneth Walker is my quick 4.
Hall's my RB3.
Kenneth Walker, man, this guy just continues to force missed tackles. He's incredible.
We'll have all.
We'll see. We got more. We got all
these guys. Yeah. We got a while before they're getting drafted. Anyone down this week, Jake?
I mean, I think the guy that I've been least impressed with, that had a lot of hype heading into the season, was Mechie, the wide receiver on Alabama. I think this Alabama offense in general has kind of been disappointing to an extent. They have Bryce Young at quarterback, so everyone thought, he's the second coming of any of these previous Alabama quarterbacks. He's going to continue the trend of Jalen Hurts to all these guys, Mac Jones, all of them. But he's looked okay. He's looked young and inexperienced, and he is. And I think the receivers, there's just so many of them on Alabama that none of them have really stood out. And I think a lot of them are trying to live up to the expectations set by, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, and none of them can fill their shoes. And I don't think that's necessarily a knock on them as much as how good the other guys were in Alabama. But I do think Mechie's stock and a bunch of the other Alabama wide receiver stock is falling, and I think that's just how it's going to be because everyone's expecting them to be Jalen Waddle. Everyone's expecting them to be Jerry Jeudy, and they're just not. They're just not that caliber of player, in my opinion, and I think they're going to be knocked for it, even though they are still a talented player that will be in the NFL at some point.
I think Mechie kind of fell victim a little bit too. People saw these flashes with him before, expecting him to take the giant leap. He had the huge benefit of defensive backs focusing on guys like Smith, Waddle, Jeudy, and Ruggs, and all of them, where he was able to get by while the defense focused on those guys, and he might not be ready to take that step to go up and be the person who the defense has to focus on now. I still like him as a receiver, but he's not in that tier as those other guys, for me at least so far.
The Alabama receivers I typically think are always overrated. The one that I have my eyes on, and it's not for this year, but just over the next 3 years, is I'm going to butcher his name, but Ajayi Hall. I'm going to go with Ajayi.
A.G. Hall.
A.G.
Hall. A.G. I'm pretty sure.
I don't know. There's a Y in there, but A.G. Hall. He's the only one that I have my eyes on that I care about. But he's a freshman currently, so we'll have to wait and see on him. All right, are we good to move on to the waiver wire?
Yep. 2022 quarterbacks still blow. It looks like that's it.
That's the short version. Yeah,
it's been
not as encouraging as we thought.
Yeah.
All right. Waiver wire, back for round 4 or 5 or 6, who knows at this point. Josh Gordon signed with the Kansas City Chiefs of all teams. He's probably going to be the one that everyone was looking to blow their fab on.
Don't blow all your fab on Josh.
I'm blowing all my fab on him.
I'm not going to do
Why?
it.
I don't give a fuck.
I'm not.
Frank's back. Well, Frank just hates fab in the first place. He'll trade fab for whatever he could get.
Dude, I'm just a stonker. I'm going to blow all my fab on him to try and trade him for like a second if he has one good game.
Not getting a second for him.
Dude,
you'll never get a second.
I need like one touchdown. One touchdown, and I am going to send him for a second round pick in every league I'm in.
Okay. I'll let you
Good luck with that.
I'm going to go to every team that has a second round pick in like the next 5 years.
If you turn Josh Gordon into a second, that's more miraculous than Jesus turning water into wine.
Maybe I'll do an upgrade, a third to a second, something, as a stonker does. We're creative.
I've been hurt too many times, guys. I can't believe. I'm sorry. I'm out. I'm not doing it. Not happening. I'm sorry.
I mean, the man's just been out of football for the past 3 years.
It's not like when he. I was gonna say it's not like when he played last year. He was with the shitty offense. He was with Russell Wilson, and he still wasn't really putting up startable numbers. So, I'm good on Josh Gordon.
Russell Wilson's overrated.
He didn't know how to use him.
It's funny too because I've never bought into the Josh Gordon hype. I just want to try and get him to trade him. I think I could do it.
Okay.
That's very typical Frank. All right, moving on. Someone that Frank actually broke down on our Twitch streams when we were looking at the prospects and I was watching with him. Tommy Tremble scored his first touchdown last week against the Texans. Then the Panthers went and traded Dan Arnold, who was in front of him.
R.I.P.
Yeah, R.I.P. The issue is now the Panthers have the Dan Arnold curse, so they're going to have to deal with that. But I don't know. I'm still, again, not buying into Tommy Tremble. He's probably not on the waiver wire in a lot of deep dynasty leagues.
He's probably drafted. He's, in my opinion, it's tough for him because even if he's solid, he's the 5th receiving option on that team. You still have DJ Moore, you have Anderson, you have Terrace Marshall, and you have McCaffrey. So if you drafted him good, you should keep him. You just keep him on your taxi squad still and just see what happens. I'm not trading for him though.
You want to know what he is?
Yes, Frank.
You have a picture of a Jaguar.
Bait. Dude's bait. Blocking tight end. Listen, I think that he definitely has some talent in year 2, year 3 breakout. Yeah, sure. But if you're picking him up expecting him to be something consistent at the tight end position, I mean, you're probably a certified crackhead, in my opinion.
Yikes. All right, we'll toss this one to Jake.
He's a good stash, though. I think he's a good stash.
He's worth a roster spot or a taxi spot.
Yeah. Jeff Wilson potentially coming back from injury soon.
Yeah, he's on the PUP, so he's eligible to come back after week 6.
Every 49ers running back.
Every 49ers running back.
Dude, who they signed their practice squad? Buy him. Scoop them all up. Dude, 5'7", 40 matters. Shanahan will turn him into an RB2. Like, that is the dynasty community right now.
He made the fullback fantasy viable last week.
Yeah. I mean,
dude, he's on the trending. Freaking Kyle Juszczyk is trending up on Sleeper. Like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, I mean, Jeff Wilson looked good in the closing weeks last week of last season, and then he got the injury this offseason. But I think just he's not a bad stash if you could pick him up for absolutely nothing. But he's not a guy that I'm going out and giving up anything for.
That backfield is literally
a
carousel.
You could put him on your IR spot, right?
Yeah, I have him on my IR in our league right now.
That's
just because
cash right there. That is cash. Being able to juicy to put him on the IR spot. You don't even have to use a roster spot until you can play.
Yeah. So I guess if he's somehow a free agent in any of your leagues, pick him up now and just throw him on your IR, and just see what happens. But otherwise,
all right. Peyton Barber is next.
All Peyton Barber's performance did for me was just kind of prove, like we all thought, how dumb that Kenyon Drake contract was, giving him $11 million. Peyton Barber's gotten more touches than him.
Because freaking contracts nowadays are fugazi. You just throw out random numbers, and I don't even know if the guys get paid half the freaking time.
They guaranteed money. Did so. Drake is going to get $11 million. So Peyton Barber has outtouched him in the 2 games. That's the main takeaway I got from it.
I mean, I swear, coaches are just like ridiculous. Right, this shit that happens, man. They're just like,
I don't know.
Can you drink? Yeah, fuck it. Might as well get him. Fuck it. Who cares?
All right, we're good to move on.
Yeah.
That wraps up our waiver wires,
and we have more cap room. What do you know?
now we're looking at the panic meter, and I don't know. There's a lot of big names on this one. Actually, looking down the list. First off, we're going to kick it off with Allen Robinson. I'll touch on him real quick. My level on Allen Robinson is like a 2. I get that we've got the Matt Nagy offense, which still is just horrendous. The offensive line is not very good, but it's Allen Robinson who's literally proven that he's quarterback proof. He's unbreakable. I get it's not a great 3 starting weeks, but he's still seen I could do it real quick. Some real quick math. He's seen 21 targets. Through 3 games, 7 targets. It's just the production really hasn't come. Like, he's only had 1 touchdown. He hasn't had many yards per catch. But it's just a matter of time. It's just he's just going to regress back to his mean, and we're just going to see Allen Robinson do Allen Robinson things again. I'm not worried in the slightest.
I'm panicking if I was expecting Allen Robinson to be a top receiver.
If my name is Chris, I'm panicking like hell. Otherwise, I'm fine. If
all
your
the
name's
Chris's
Chris,
out there are shaking.
Yeah, if your name's Chris, you should be panicking so hard. If your name's not Chris, I wouldn't be worried.
Well, I'm pretty sure I was the only dude that was like in the offseason that rated Allen Robinson with an overrated tag.
Probably did.
Not that I saw the level of this happening. I just never really. He was kind of in that Keenan Allen category. Where I think Allen Robinson's a good player, don't get me wrong. And right now, I think he's a great buy low because people are just really panicking on him. I mean, like JT said, you can get really cheap, high-value targets. But I think this kind of just proved, at least what I thought, maybe what people thought in the back of their heads. Dude, if you were expecting Allen Robinson to be a top 15 receiver, I think that was just the bait. I really never saw it. You compare him to Keenan Allen, I think he's just way less of a talent than someone like Keenan Allen is. And I don't like his play style a ton for consistency.
Yeah, no, definitely Keenan Allen in my head. My early prediction now is he's going to be everyone's favorite buy low this offseason.
Of course.
Everyone's going to be saying
because everyone's going to be like,
Robinson.
Justin Fields is the full-time starter. Oh, he's going to be so good. Yes, everyone's going to say that.
Mm-hmm.
I can already see it coming.
Yeah,
next on the panic meter.
Predictable.
Next on the panic meter, Myles Sanders.
Yeah, so I don't know if Matt Nagy and Nick Sirianni try to do a competition of who could have a worse offensive game plan for last week, but it was tough to watch on both their ends.
It might be Zach Allen or Zach.
You want to know what it is? Freaking Nick Sirianni, it looked like his mom dressed him for the freaking games, right? He's got like the highlighter in the pen. Oh, don't forget your purple pen, honey. Like he's got no wrinkles in his shirts. He's got no coffee stain. All of it, and then I think his mom made the freaking game plan too. Like packed his lunch and everything.
Listen, bro, you have your young QB in his 7th start on the road going against a high-powered offense, and you're asking him to drop back 50 times and outduel Dak Prescott and the Cowboys offense. He got pretty much Myles Sanders got 2 carries for 27 yards. He finished the game with 4 carries for 55 yards. Which is miraculous. He got 55 on just 4 carries. I don't know why Sirianni just forgot that the run existed. You have a young quarterback who's struggling. You might want to use it. But as for my panicking on Myles Sanders, ultimately what comes down with a lot of stuff for fantasy with me is, do I believe in the talent? Talent will usually be the biggest thing. And I still do believe in Myles Sanders. Throwing in the Jalen Hurts audible. He had a terrible game, but he still had 20 points.
Is anyone really panicking on Jalen Hurts?
Dude,
I don't think
fantasy
fantasy
owners
are
panicking on Jalen Hurts after that performance.
I feel like... I've never bought into Jalen Hurts, so
I haven't either. But I mean, he's still in terms of fantasy production. He still ended up with 20
that's
points.
A bad game for him, and he still ended up with 20.
I think this is actually a good time. Like, if people are panicking on Jalen Hurts to buy him, this is a defense that he struggled against last year.
Yeah, the Cowboys game was his worst game as a rookie, also.
And I think that they, well, like they said, that game plan is terrible, dude. You don't even try to run the football.
They didn't do him any favors, and missing 3 linemen and still trying to pass.
Dude, and they're running that freaking angel safety the entire game. Like, they're taking away the one thing that I think that Jalen Hurts is actually decent at. He had the one deep ball interception that I think kind of got him off of trying to stretch the defense for the rest of the game. Then he's holding on to these RPOs for 90 seconds. It was just a freaking nightmare.
They had 0 plays with anyone in motion. But going back to Myles Sanders for me, I just think is still a very talented running back. I like the amount of snaps he got. Kenneth Gainwell came in at the end when the score was like 32-14 from most of the end of the game, him and Boston Scott. But while they were still somewhat in it, Myles Sanders was getting the heavy majority of the snaps. I can't see Sirianni being that bad of a coach for that to happen again. At least I hope not. So I'm kind of buying low on Sanders right now. Obviously, I don't think the owners are going to be selling low like that, so I'm not saying to go out and trade off. I just mean on his stock in general. He's too talented of a running back for me to be like, oh, he's like trash now.
Yeah, Nick Sirianni's mom has got to come up with a better game plan.
It's like it's just because of the touch. He had 55 yards on 4 carries.
Film room.
He can only
All right, Big Ben.
Right. I'm going to combine him with Matt Ryan. Because they're both
Big Ben and Matt Ryan. I'm not panicking on either of these guys. I mean, it feels like it's the theme in both of them. Maybe for like longevity purposes, but
that Big Ben video was so funny.
Dude, I still like Ben the rest of the season for fantasy as a cheap QB3, QB4 kind of desperation play.
I have no hope for these guys outside of this year at this point. I thought Big Ben was going to come back next year. I don't really think that. I think the Falcons are going to be just tired of Matt Ryan by next year. I think Matt Ryan's going to be tired of it next year, by next year anyway. I just think both these guys are gone by this upcoming offseason. I don't know if that means they end up somewhere else or whatnot, but they're just not really appealing fantasy plays either. Like, they're just, I'd rather go risk it on other guys. I don't know. That's my 2 cents, I guess.
Oh, my next easy prediction, everyone. The Steelers receivers are buy low this offseason. No, thanks.
Yeah.
They
were overvalued. I think we all agreed that they were overvalued this
Dude, I still like
I don't think they were overvalued. I think Claypool and Deontay
priced.
are that talented.
Claypool, dude, if anything, it showed from that last week, aside from our offensive line sucking just ass, Deontay Johnson was like needed for that football game for us to move the football.
I think you need a lot of things, like a prime Tom Brady, for example.
Actually, I don't know. Maybe I'm panicking a little bit on these guys.
Yeah, there it is.
Absolutely.
Well, here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. If I'm panicking in terms of like their value 2 weeks ago, yeah, like it's definitely gone down. But I mean, I don't think they're like bad players, and I think that the panic from the consensus is more of a panic than what I think it should be. So that's why.
Well, yeah, I think the thing is you were just lower on them than consensus was, so it doesn't really seem as much like a panic to you versus like.
Well, I wasn't lower. I'm not if you look at keep trade cut, they're probably going to be two of the biggest fallers. Like I don't think they're falling that much to me on my.
I mean, for example, Matt Ryan was viewed as for a contender, he can be your QB2.
Matt Ryan,
people thought that
coming into the season because Matt Ryan, yeah, you're right. Like you might have bought him at an actual quarterback price. Ben Roethlisberger, you weren't going to pay coming into the season more than like a late. You
probably didn't want him as your QB2, yeah. But no, Matt Ryan coming into the season was viewed as like, hey, you can be a contender and have Matt Ryan as your QB2.
Or AJ Brown though.
AJ Brown, I think AJ Brown is going to be one of those where it's the legitimately buy low because I see people like actually like not even being like, oh, it's only a couple weeks. I see people being like, we were just completely wrong about it. And now he's out for a couple weeks with a hamstring injury, which for receivers especially, those get tricky. Like those are the type of injuries that end up, you think it's like 2-3 and ends up being like 6 or something. I don't know if it was a grade 1 or grade 2 for sure yet, but I think he's going to be someone where, especially, I'm guessing AJ Brown's owned a lot by contenders. He's starting to miss time. If I'm a rebuilding team, I'm kind of looking at him to kind of try to buy low and giving the contender a receiver that can help them win now.
He's
especially if this injury nags.
He's dropped from being wide receiver 2 overall on keep trade cut to wide receiver 8 in less than a month.
Yeah, like that's.
I'm panicking.
I am
still have him in my top 5.
No, I was big on AJ Brown. I'm with Frank on this one. I am absolutely panicking. I mean, I was offered him this offseason, and I declined because I was worried about his injury history, and it's just come back and bit him again. I mean, I think he's a guy that really relied on a lot of big plays and some bad tackling to make a lot of his points. And now just, injuries and Tannehill's not looking as good as he was the previous few years. And Julio Jones is there, is going to pull targets. Derrick Henry's always going to be there and demand 20, 25 carries. Like, I know he's 24 and I know there's a long way to go in his career, but like I might be reconsidering his price. And I think if you could still trade him at that, I think if you could trade him at that wide receiver 5 even price, I think I would probably do it.
JT, who's next to him in keep trade cut? Some of the players next to him.
Good question.
2 above, 2 below.
While I look for that, my 2 cents are I just think that he is someone that people are valuing as like he could have like top 5 wide receiver finishes. Where I look more as him like he's like very consistent. Like
he's going to be like a top 12 guy
10,
for a lot
12,
of years.
15 for like 8 or so years. It looks like it's Joe Burrow, Derrick Henry, Terry McLaurin, DJ Moore are who's up and below him.
I think that I took a little bit of the bait on AJ Brown because I wasn't huge on him, but then there was a point late in the offseason where I was like, fine, he's a 5th in my receiver rankings, and now I'm like, now I see what's happened. Like, fuck, I was initially right. I had him around that like 8, 9, 10-ish spot on my receiver rankings and on my overall. Like, you get the freaking point. I'm panicking just because, like, dude, I'm not liking this Titans offense right now. It's going to be inconsistent all season to me. It's so dependent on if Derrick Henry can just destroy everyone. And
I think it's a fair point about the
offense.
offense.
Is that they just don't throw the fucking football a lot. Like,
I think it's a fair point about the offense. I'm buying the talent with not expect. He's not going to have a good season this year.
Okay, yeah.
Between coming off that injury,
AJ Brown could be fine. I'm not saying he's a bad player, and I'm not saying that he can't be a buy low. But like Jake said, if you still have the truthers that are clinging on to a wide receiver 6, wide receiver 5 valuation of him, man, I will sell at that. And I would much rather, like you talk about what we were talking about earlier, like downgrading. Yeah, I will downgrade off of AJ Brown gladly. I'm just tired of being in an offense that's only throwing the ball league bottom rates, and now with the injuries and stuff, yeah, maybe I'm just panicking. I don't want it anymore. I'm done.
I'm said truther, but I think rebuilding teams are the ones that really should be going for him right now. Offer win now pieces. Go
Myles
ahead.
Gaskin.
Yeah,
Panic.
I mean,
I was fucking panicking.
I was never big on Myles Gaskin, and it's just showing why. He has little to. I think he was a 7th round draft pick, so he has very low draft capital. He was drafted by the previous coaching staff in the first place, so this coaching staff has no ties to him. And on top of that, he got benched this week for Malcolm Brown,
who didn't look bad at all.
Okay, I think benched is a harsh word. Like he
was benched though.
Played.
He wasn't the starter. Put it that way.
Yeah, he's still there. Yeah. Okay, here's the misconception I have with Myles, because I actually still like Myles Gaskin, and I'm looking to buy him. It's just we finally reached what Myles Gaskin should have been all along, and that
Correct.
he's not this. And I think I took the bait more in redraft leagues on Gaskin than anything else because I thought that this offense would just be a lot of check down Charlie kind of stuff. It just seems like Waddle
was
is
the
that
check down
kind of guy. Yeah,
Waddle had
the
12 targets last week.
Well, yeah, that's the thing.
Like
It's a lot of
66 yards.
underneath non-valuable targets, but that's what Myles Gaskin was getting last season.
Right.
He was the guy getting all that dump-off crap.
Right.
Yeah, that's the problem in and of itself, is that if he's not going to get the 7-8 targets, then what the hell am I having him for if I can still get a second-round pick for him? Unless I'm trying to really contend, and I'm like, damn, like my top 2 running backs above him are terrible. Yeah, I'll take seconds.
Any Gaskin owner right now, if you can get any second-round pick for him, still take that offer.
Absolutely.
Maybe not like the contenders second.
I'd still take like a
210,
211.
I
would
don't
take
know
that.
if I want 211, 212.
Frank.
The Dolphins are going to draft her back or bring in.
Come the off season, and everyone's clamoring over these picks. They're like, "Oh, I want to get back into the second round. I want to get back into the second round." You're gonna like that you gave up Myles Gaskin for that pick.
And the Dolphins are going to bring someone in. If he's losing snaps now to Malcolm Brown, if they bring in anyone who's just like a decent running back free agent, draft someone in the 3rd or 4th round.
I mean, we all agreed earlier in the season that he's just one of those backup running backs that ascended too far and was a good sell opportunity if applicable. It was a hard sell, but if you were creative, you probably should have done it.
Right. I mean, I think the problem, and I think you're panicking.
We just got to move on. Like, I mean, we all agree on the Gaskin thing. Like, we know what he's at.
All right, Robby Anderson, you better be panicking because Terrace Marshall's coming. Robby Anderson's out.
I was panicking on Robby Anderson 2 seasons too early.
I think there's too many narratives that we're going and pushing Robby Anderson's way. I think he still will have his boom bust games, but it won't be like a Tyler Lockett boom bust games. It'll be not as cool, and therefore panic because Terrace Marshall's better.
I guess what it depends the expectations are for him. I don't know if people expect him to repeat last season. I said no just for the fact that McCaffrey's back, and I think DJ Moore is going to be better. And obviously they drafted Terrace Marshall. So I was already a little bit lower on him entering this year, so I guess I'm not in full panic mode compared to my evaluations. I still think he's going to be an important part of the offense. There's a reason they just extended him before this season. They have a plan for him in the offense. And Matt Rule said after the game, we have to get him the ball more. Terrace Marshall is going to be a presence, but I guess it depends with your evaluation.
Contracts are bait. You could restructure. You could cut guys. There's dead cap. Who cares? I don't care about his contract. He's done.
Yeah. Tyson Williams, panic.
Heavy panic.
Yeah. I was panicked right after his first half. Once it turned into the second half and he fumbled 2 times and then he was ceding touches to Latavius Murray and whatnot, I was like, all right, that was a good stint by him, but it's over. I just don't see him coming back.
Do you think the panic is to such a point where it's a potential buy low?
No,
or is it not worth
especially
it?
I don't know if you guys saw the report today. The Colts and Marlon Mack both mutually agreed to look for a trade. So a Marlon Mack trade should be happening over these next couple of weeks. I don't know, maybe San Fran, Buffalo, Baltimore's definitely in there. If he ends up there, it's completely over for him. So I'm also on panic for Tyson.
I mean, the Ravens also just didn't run the ball a ton, which is weird, which is why if I could get a decent price, I would sell, and I am panicking. It's just I'm not going to sell for complete chump change just yet.
I just don't think you're going to get anything. Like, who's giving up a valuable asset for Tyson Williams?
I was thinking like a third. Like, third.
I don't even know if you'll get that.
Why not? All right. Last segment, real quick. We'll just run through it. Bait or great. Mike Williams, someone Lounis was on just a couple weeks ago.
I stand by. Great for this season. As long as he's on the Chargers, I like him.
I see. Here's the thing with Mike Williams I find interesting that I really do not think is being factored into his price, which, God, I don't love Mike Williams as a fantasy player, but it feels like no one is saying this. Why is everyone assuming that Mike Williams is gone after this year as if they don't have a quarterback on a rookie contract and a bunch of good young players? Like, they can't pay this dude. that they might not want to keep
I didn't
him
say
around?
I didn't say it was a lock. I said if he leaves. And it's just, I guess I could see a team looking at him. I think he's going to finish the year over 1,000 yards and just kind of throwing him a big contract.
He feels like he could potentially be a new Robby Anderson, where it's like, okay, everyone's assuming that, one of Robby Anderson or Cooper Kupp are going to go, but then all of a sudden we got to remember that contracts are fucking fugazi, and they keep everyone around.
You mean Robert Woods?
Yeah, Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. Did I say someone else?
Robby Anderson. But
oh, yeah, Robert Woods.
All right. I could see a team throwing the bag at him, like Luna said, though.
Because I could see what kind of happened with Corey Davis last offseason happening with him. But we'll see. I do like him on the Chargers side.
One of the better options available this offseason in terms of wide receivers. So.
Yeah, but the thing is, too, the Titans could have paid him if they really wanted to. They just decided to go out and sign more crappy defensive players.
And trade for Julio Jones, but yeah.
All right. Dalton Schultz, I'm saying bait. I've never been a Dalton Schultz guy.
Is he worth anything now? Because, if you could pick him up cheap, I actually like Dalton Schultz, low key. It's
late third.
The thing about it is just any part of this Dallas passing attack is going to have their games, and I think it's going to be very inconsistent. I do think you'll have another game this season where Dalton Schultz does have a great game, but I think picking that game is going to be very tough.
There are going to be weeks for it's Jarwin, weeks for
he's just a wastelander at best, but
absolutely.
He's like a mid to late third, apparently, on keep trade cut.
But you're telling me that he can't be like a Jonnu Smith? Mid to late third, I think that's worth it if you really need a tight end. What do you mean?
If
you're be a Jonnu Smith? No.
When has Jonnu Smith done anything tremendous?
When has Dalton Schultz done anything tremendous?
Dude, you look at I can almost
Smith
guarantee
is just a much
that
more
these
talented
3
player.
weeks that Dalton Schultz has had is better than any 3 weeks of Jonnu Smith.
Jonnu Smith last year before he hurt his ankle was actually pretty good. He was a solid.
I'm gonna blindly say that as if it's fact.
Jonnu Smith was tight end 1, but Jonnu Smith was tight end 1 last year through 4 games, by the way. But just saying.
Okay, maybe he's not as good as Jonnu.
Yeah. All right, Cordarrelle Patterson, Falcons.
Bait.
I guess bait. I mean, I don't know
what
the price is.
I was gonna say, what's the
great's like a strong term, but I think if he sticks out as like a running back, I don't hate it. He just he'd be like I don't know.
He's kind of like this year's Gaskin.
Yeah, maybe.
Sure. Yeah,
that's how I kind of view him.
He needs to keep getting 7-8 targets a game.
That's
he can. The thing that's nice about him too is he's keeping a spot on the roster in terms of he can also just return kicks and whatnot. So he's going to get opportunities.
Maybe he is great. Maybe he is. I mean, honestly, I think he swung
good.
I could easily see him being one of these dudes. It's like, oh well, I freaking wish I picked up Cordarrelle Patterson. He was great for me in the playoffs.
Yeah,
just randomly, and then he ascends back into mediocrity next year.
He can easily go back to 0, but he could be someone who gives you a bunch of weeks with 11 or 12 points, 11, 13 points.
All right, last 3 guys. We got Jamaal Williams.
Bait.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a bad running back. I just think Swift is going to be the focus
at the price he's at right now. I think he's a bait, but he can be.
People are looking for second-round picks for him.
I'm not giving you a second for Jamaal Williams. No.
I think half the price is personality. People are like, oh yeah, we really like Jamaal Williams.
Oh, I mean, he's funny. He's a funny person, but
as crazy as it sounds, I think you might get it from a real running back needy team. I think you might be able to get it with his first 3 weeks.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I would definitely sell at that price though, but yeah, don't.
Oh, absolutely, I'm selling at that price, but I think you might be able to actually get it.
Yeah, and I mean, we have DeAndre Swift is literally questionable every single week with a groin injury, so there's that too. He could be the starter at some point. All right, Emmanuel Sanders, bait or great?
Great.
Jake's on the great. Why are you on the great, Jake?
I mean, I think this Bills offense it's similar to why Frank likes, Cole Beasley. I think he's just a guy that you can get for very cheap that is going to get 4, 5, 6 targets on a very good offense. And I think he's a guy that could fill in for the price of almost nothing. And I think he's a good buy for that, for what he's at right now.
I'm in a league. I've had Emmanuel Sanders since Nam. Like
Since
every year,
Pittsburgh.
I'm like, should I try to trade him? I'm like, well, I'm only gonna get a fourth, so might as well not.
Exactly, and I think if you can get him for a fourth, it's a fantastic buy because he's a guy that's on a good, like I said, good offense, and he's gonna get 4, 5, 6 targets a game.
If I knew for sure he was gonna get 5, 6 targets, I'd feel a little bit better. I just that was like an offensive explosion of a game. There's still Gabriel Davis and Cole Beasley, and I don't think Diggs is getting enough targets. Kinda, it's a little bit lower this year.
I don't know. I could see both
that going.
sides of the coin. I think that there might just be better players to buy at his price tag. Maybe.
His price tag is like 0.
Yeah, I'd have to get a third, and it'd have to be a halfway decent third.
All right.
I think you're high on him, but that's a different story.
But what's the point? What's the point of selling him for a fourth? It just doesn't make any sense. Why would I do that?
I agree with you, but
All right, last guy, Henry Ruggs. I mean, I've been on this. I don't really want to bring in another player, but like Marquise Brown too, like bait. Like Henry Ruggs has seen 7 targets the past 2 weeks. That's literally his career high. I just don't think that's going to continue. I don't see Henry Ruggs keeping those targets, especially when you're playing against teams with, I don't know, that you want to pass the ball against more is kind of what I'd say. Like you want to keep up with them. They're naturally a team that just funnels the ball to Darren Waller and their running back / fullback. Bait. He's like Tyler Lockett, but without the good days.
I mean, he just had a good day. I liked Ruggs. I like Ruggs.
There we go. Hook.
I like Ruggs.
I really like Ruggs. Yeah, he's really good.
Like it's this like crazy thought that a wide receiver can improve in their second season. I know it's like outlandish.
Yeah, like sure he can.
Not JT. Lounis, blasphemous.
Yeah, I know it's like what, especially when his rookie year there was no offseason and he was injured to start off his rookie year.
The wide receiver that's improving his second year on that team is Brian Edwards. It's not
and who's still like 20 spots ranking wise below Ruggs. But continuing on Ruggs.
You're doing that.
But I'm just spitting
amateur
numbers.
Hour here.
That's not an opinion. That's just a fact.
Like Ruggs, man, such a bait.
Ruggs. Well, it depends what you're expecting him to be.
Other than run fast, what does he do well?
I think he has really good vertical. I think,
dude, Lounis, tell me there is no way that you can insert Henry Ruggs into your starting lineup and not have a little dude on your shoulder saying, "You're an idiot. Get him out of your lineup. You're an idiot."
That's
like
me.
The entire day.
I'm really saying it's the shoulder.
No, I'm just.
It's a little JT right in your shoulder.
I've been going back and watching a lot of like his routes, runs, and catches. I think his footwork is years beyond what it was last year. So many touchdowns last year weren't completed because he couldn't get his feet in bounds. I think his footwork's a lot better this year. I think he's playing a lot more confident. I think him and Carr have better chemistry. Carr's throwing to his receivers a lot more this season, especially the past 2 games. I just think he's starting to figure it out. I'm not saying he's going to be like some superstar or wide receiver 1, but like it's his second season. His rookie year, he got hurt right away, no off season. I legitimately think he's improved a lot as a receiver, and it's someone I'm going to continue to pay attention to.
The wide receiver to own on this team, not named Darren Waller.
Don't say it. Don't literally just log out. Yeah,
it's no.
Third and Renfro, baby.
Get out of here.
I just think Edwards and Ruggs both are a lot more comfortable with Derek Carr, and I don't know. I like Ruggs. I think he's improved a lot. So we'll see how he ends up this season, especially if Derek Carr keeps up like his rate of how many passing yards he's had. He's on a ridiculous
pace. There's no way
right
that's sustainable.
But we'll see. I think he's been decent.
I'm pretty sure during this Raiders Dolphins game during the fourth quarter, end of the fourth quarter, the Dolphins were in 3rd and 20, right before the end of the game. So it was a nice little shout out. And with that, I think that's how we'll end our 3rd and 20 episode, season 2, episode 8, in the books. Thank you for everyone for watching, liking, reviewing, rating, comment. Tell which one of us is an idiot down in the comments. I know Lounis will get a lot of the hate, but